The Harlem Renaissance was a time period during the early 20s and World War I where minorities were rising up and filling positions of common whites. In the midst of World War I, African Americans traveled to the North to fill positions that had been left by the draft. For African Americans, this meant financial opportunities and exposure to racial and religious diversity. A great majority of African Americans lived in a suburb called Harlem, where such things as jazz clubs and partying came to be predominant, and thus the center hub for young people in the 20s.
The Harlem Renaissance gave African American culture a whole new outlook. They began to take pride in their role as true Americans and began to explode with new types of art, music, and sports. Large characters like Du Bois, Paul Robeson, Count Basie, and etc. These African American men in areas of art, music, and intellect provided outlets to further grow equal civil rights for Black culture.
To the Rastafari movement. His inspiration led to furthering the Harlem Renaissance. The Harlem Renaissance means a coming of age for Black culture. In themselves and not be run over by European colonies. He wanted African Americans to stay in Africa and become economically stable. This meant whites were to stay in Europe. The way Marcus Garvey acted towards segregation is what inspired others. Therefore, he inspired others ranging from Islam.
Many late-night Harlem clubs opened up during this time, revealing the groundbreaking age of jazz and the blues. Jazz during this time became extremely popular due to the new and different style it had. It also gave birth to many iconic musical artists like Fletcher Henderson and King Oliver. Literature was given a whole new light by figures such as Langston Hughes and Claude McKay. Even with many schools and museums shutting them out, African American men like famous Aaron Douglas continue to amaze.
Minorities continue to protest against racial privilege, refugee law, police brutality, and more. They use their voice and numbers to change the views of others.
The mass media drew attention to the rising cultures and gained respect for African Americans. For the first time, they had the ability to create music and dance. They were able to acquire new occupations that weren't found in the South. African Americans subsequently made America more diverse and blending the African and Black African ways and traditions together.
Even to this day, African American culture is growing in music, art, dance, intellect, and more. It is enjoyed by all Americans and continues to shape the U.S. as a whole. Although there may still be some racial prejudice today, African Americans have gained a strong and equal voice in today's society. Much like the situation in protesting against police brutality, men use sport entertainment to voice their opinions.